My name is Susan Universe. Welcome. I'm a transformational coach, a touch and intimacy coach, a Kundalini Yoga teacher, a co-founder of Conscious Clubbing, organising sober raves and communities in the Northeast, and a one-to-one healer, High Priestess, and human. I am on here today to welcome you into an insight of my life that I would like to call Prison Was My First Ashram. And this is a deep root to everything I am and what I do today. So if you wish to work with me, you can contact me below. I wish to go to the beginning of the story of how I ended up serving a 2-year and 2-month prison sentence in a Spanish prison. And I'd like to start somewhere that feels quite mystical. There was a huge solar eclipse in 1999. I'd already been involved with criminal networks, and I was with my partner, and we were doing international visits to Spain and other parts of the UK, and drug trafficking, basically, and organised crime. And so this story isn't just about how I became Susan Universe and what I do today. This story is a love story. And so back to the beginning. This solar eclipse happened. Something felt amazing and strange and weird as I stood at the beach in Tynemouth, where my home was, and we were preparing for our next journey in our car because we couldn't get flights. There was so many things that went wrong, actually, a lot of tension. And on that afternoon, we left our home, never to return, because it wasn't our home as when we got back. But the start of it is we travelled by car with somebody else as well, and travelled down to Dover, went through the Eurotunnel, and ended up in Reims in France that night with nowhere. Everything was fully booked because Reims was one of the main places that everybody gathered. Thousands and thousands of spiritual people, teachers, organisations and crowds gathered in Reims to witness this eclipse. So by that night we were there unknowingly, because we didn't have a plan really, and slept in the car, and the next day found somewhere else, ended up in a place called Lyon in France, and that was when I had my first dream of something was wrong. Something was going to happen. I knew it inside myself, in my soul. And I was so tired, and had a nap in the afternoon. And I had a dream that I was in the back of our car and it suddenly stopped and 2 police guards turned and faced me. And I woke up like, oh my God, that was so frightening. The next day, the car would not start. And so I believe that was another option. We had the option to turn back. We didn't know why it wouldn't start. We couldn't speak French. And eventually a mechanic did get it started and just said, you can't stop the car now for like the whole time wherever you're driving. And we were like, oh, all right, then we'll just keep going ahead. But I remember us deciding to either turn back or go. So we decided to go ahead and we crossed the Spanish border. So I think this is like 2 days later, 3 days maybe. And as soon as we got through the Spanish border, I was petrified. I've never felt that way before. It was almost like, and I can feel my soul now, like the hairs sticking up on my arms. I was scared without an intelligent kind of interference of why that was. I just felt really, really scared. Continued the journey and ended up in Malaga and met with people, came from Morocco, packed up the car, stayed one night in Malaga, and then headed back. Everything was done very, very quickly. And started to travel back to the border. And we was kind of worrying about, how we're going to get across in the Channel Tunnel. We haven't done this before like this. And we ended up in Benidorm. We'd been there loads of times before to meet up with people and discuss plans and things like that. And we got, I remember, a bolognese takeout, right? I remember this in a foil, takeout carton. And so for some other, I don't know why, just a high stress reason, we're always under stress, really. We had an argument in the car, massive argument, and my then fiance chucked the bolognese out the window, and I was like, "You bastard, I'm hungry." Anyway, fast forward to just before we got arrested. All I can say is, and I feel this with so much emotion, that all of a sudden this peace washed over me. And I feel like he felt that too. And we held hands and we're like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I love you." And he said, "I know, I love you too. I'm so sorry about this." And as much love and peace that I could have in my young body at that time and hold, I felt it very real. And we had this harmonious feeling minutes before we got stopped at the pay toll in a village called Puthol near Murcia in Valencia. And this bit is a very much a blur of bright flashy lights and scariness, basically. But we were stopped, pulled over by the civil guard, the Guardia Civil, which are the military police in Spain. And another car that was behind us, that was with us, got stopped as well. We got pulled aside and basically they just separated us then. And just absolute shock just set in, which I feel even to this day is still part of me. That experience of this deep grief or loss in a sudden way. That would ultimately remove my freedom from the outside world for 2 years and 2 months. So I just remember when they removed my fiance, the panic then, which was so real. It just felt so real that's it. I don't know when I'm going to see you now. I don't feel like this is going to be okay. Nobody was expecting this. And yeah, and then they removed me. Then I saw them put handcuffs on him. He was over the other way, and then they put handcuffs on me, and I just remember being like, no, 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 and just, I was 22 years old. I was in a swimming costume and flip-flops, hungry, stoned, and in shock, and I was left in those clothes, actually the same like that, for a few days while they took us to different stations in that area. But I didn't know that at the time. So I was taken in a Jeep and put in a very small village jail. If I think hard enough now, I've done a lot of therapy about this, but if I think hard enough now, I can smell the dry rot and the stench of those that had been in there, and memorised the cracks in the wall and the little bit of window that was up on the left hand side with a few bars. So I'm going to go now to when we went to the courtroom and we were reunited. There was 3 of us handcuffed to each chair. I hadn't spoken hardly for 3 days. I think it was actual just shock. I couldn't speak. They got me an interpreter and I just couldn't even speak. I'd actually started menstruating as well while I was in the police cell and had a swimming costume on, and nobody did anything until the interpreter, who was a woman who was very kind to me, I heard her shouting in Spanish, and then they let me go back to the car, which was completely ransacked with everything, and get some clothes. So when we went to court, we felt very hopeful with our stories. You know, they didn't find anything on me. For example, I'm a woman, I'm a young woman, I'll be fine, kind of thing. And we all felt like this kind of relief. It was felt in this court, this very small municipal court. And then we were told all to go back in, and with an interpreter, I was told we had to go to prison. We couldn't go home, and the shock just set in again. The trip was to go to what they call a preventivos in Spain, which is a remand centre. It was called Picassent. We all got put in the same truck, so that was quite nice. We actually could feel this like joy of being able to be together in this van, even though there was like an impending doom of what was to come. And because of the experience that I'd lived for like 2 days or 3 nights and 2 days or whatever it was in this cell on my own, I felt really positive and excited to know what it was going to be like even. And that's where my journey began, serving the time. So went into this prison, was put in a sort of like observation, deloused, given this pink gel to be scrubbed with, under supervision as well, internally, externally searched, and left. I didn't know what was happening. Nobody was there to explain. The guard, I remember her face very clearly now, short hair, quite butch, like a typical kind of, imagine what your first prison guard would look like. She was like that actually, and I remember the first word she said to me was, she had a sponge in her hand while I was naked in the shower, and she went, "Sponja, sponja," like this, and I was just like, "Oh, that must be sponge." Anyway, yeah. Then, after 2 days, maybe I can't remember, was put in my first wing with other women. It was called Modulo 22, 22. And I started to meet the other girls. This is where I first realised that that feeling of sisterhood, actually. But first of all, I thought everyone was an enemy. I was on high alert, and I was put in a cell with, I think, maybe 6 other girls, all different characters, all Spanish, and yeah, pretty terrifying, actually. And I just kept on my guard. One of them was pretty confrontational, and I just remember standing my guard. She was shouting at me in Spanish, I was shouting at her in English, and I was just thinking, well, you don't know what I'm saying. And nothing happened apart from like intimidation. So that was my first experience of being intimidated in there, or me being the intimidator also, actually. And most of the girls were so friendly. This was the wing that was for all the foreigners. They called them extranjeros, which is foreigner, basically. And I met women from all over the world, from Russia, Africa, India, Italy, Spanish, just all over the world, apart from English, actually. um, and there was one woman particularly who took me under her wing and she could speak English. She was Colombian, and she was called Luz Andrea, and she would give me cigarettes and Coca-Cola because I didn't have any money, and a bottle of water, and back the girls off, actually, who were trying to get probably leverage, I realised at the time, to see who I am, what I'm about. It's very mammal-like in there, and everyone's really adapted to that instincts. It's very instinctual and mammal-like, and if you cry, show weakness, you will you'll be tested. So I first got a job there. They gave me a job at the mopping the prison corridors. So that was my first look outside. By the way, all this time, I'm just longing to be with my fiance. I'm longing to be back with him. So that was also, like a love that keeps you going. No one, you don't know what's happening, but it's like it keeps you going. And I've heard this before in other tales and stories about Man's Search for Meaning, which is a book. And even though you don't know what's going on, it gives you that purpose and motivation. So that did give me a lot of hope to be reunited again somehow with this man that was on the other side of this huge industrial building, doing what he was doing. I was worrying about him, just being a woman who was in love and had been separated from a partner, basically. It was going to be, so I got this job. It was the first time I got outside, and the corridors were all about, I don't know, maybe like, I don't know, they were big, wide corridors. And I got these industrial buckets and big liquid stuff to put in them and just mop the floors till you had blisters, basically. But I was outside of the inside, and it was another step out that I thought, and got to meet other people. The one thing which is a little bit funny was the men that were the guards there had a badge. Everyone had a badge. And I thought a lot of them were called Jeff because they had Jefe, I know what that means now, which means chief, had Jefe written on the thing. And I thought, oh, that's Spanish for Jeff, right? And there was a lot of Jesuses around as well, a lot of Jesuses going on. And I was like, oh yeah, Catholic. There was all sorts of different things to absorb and new stuff to see and hear, but no view. The view thing is the killer, not having a view. And the only view you have is the memories that you hold that are engraved in here. Still, in anything, I believe anyway. So meeting those people, and they were interested in, why are you here? I'm like, I don't know. I haven't got no idea. I'm just, this has just happened, and I shouldn't be here, and all that, right? Everybody's innocent in there. Okay. And what I realized over time was I'm always being observed by who's on duty, who's outside. They knew about the story about me and my novio, his boyfriend. And eventually I was actually, Jesus came to see me. He was actually called Jesus, and he was a Jeff. He was a Jefe. And he said, would you like to see him? And I just was like, yes. And they said, come and you can clean our headquarters in the male prison. So I got out of the out and went along to the other side of the building. There was about 1,200 or 1,300 male inmates and about 200 or 300 female inmates in there. So the bigger bit is the male bit. So I'm like, eyes wide, oh my God, like there's some kind of Disneyland or something, because it's a new thing, and I'm absorbing all this information and seeing different things in the control rooms and stuff like that. and people and other inmates getting walking on corridors on the other side in bars, etc. Anyway, I was taken to the male side of the control centre, and there he was, and we cried. We really cried. Tissue time already. And we were so happy to see each other. And there was no fucking, like, what's going to happen now or anything. It was just like 2 kids, nothing. Everything's been taken away. And we were being observed. Didn't really notice at the time. Must have saw him for a few minutes, and then they took him back away. And that was the first time I saw him again, after we'd been separated to go and enjoy our stay in Picassent. So time goes on. I've got little to do but observe and write letters. I got pen and paper given to me, and we just started writing internal mail to each other. Luz Andrea knew a couple of Italian mafia brothers who used to go to her pottery class, actually, and they were so lovely, and they would pass on the letters for me, so I didn't have to wait like a few days for the guards to do the internal mail service. So we used to get our letters pretty quick, which was all what I would live for, basically, is just to get these letters. From you, I'm sure he would say the same thing now, but I can only speak for myself. And I went to my first Bible study because Luz Andrea could speak English and interpret. She said, "Do you want to go to this thing with these Jehovah's Witnesses?" I said, "Aye, go on then." Probably didn't say aye, but you know what I mean. I said, "All right then," and started talking about God and listening to what they were saying in Spanish. I learned to speak Spanish very, very quickly. I learned to listen and understand it first. It took longer to speak. I was like, "How? Me, Susan," kind of thing. But could get by like lifting up objects and being like, "Baby, that," like for drink and whatever else, and food, and you learn to pick up quick when you're surviving, don't we? And then I went to this evangelist one, and this Spanish man came to me with a big smile. He had these big glasses, like really cool 80s looking glasses, I remember, and a mustache. And he was like, Susan. And he could speak a little bit of English. I could speak a bit of Spanish, so that I was thrilled at that. And he handed me this Bible, the Good News Bible, and it was in English, and I was thrilled. I mean, it's a nice cover, right? Lovely, right? And then I started to read it from cover to cover, and it said, "In the beginning, there was the Word." And that was my first conscious spiritual experience that led me to joy, led me to freedom, even though my circumstances didn't say so. I found something inside myself. And even though I don't verbatim link myself to these words, I knew it was the start of something. I know now today it was the start of something good. Good news. This is good news, look. Good news. Good news. And I had a lot of time on my hands, right? I had to wait 3 months to go to trial, and we got a lawyer, and every appeal he put in was denied. And we're like, the next one. The one thing as well, when you're in these situations, there is always some kind of hope that'll happen, or something you can be hopeful for, and in anything in your life. But I could see my simplified life with not many people in it, 1,500 to be exact, and no distractions and no view. I could really concentrate and focus on what was going on inside. I was already addicted to drugs, and got off drugs there. And I did start to believe in what I was reading, and I believe it did appear. I think this is my first experience of manifestation. What we're all talking about now, manifest, manifest, manifest. This was watching and observing the manifestations of others. You know, if somebody attacked someone, you could see them getting reprimanded or losing something, or them getting attacked, or you could see like life unfolding in a very simple way. And one of the amazing things as well was when you took time to really do something good with yourself while under observation, even though you never really knew you were being observed. Well, I didn't anyway. Is good things started to happen and doors started to open for me. So I got offered to get a work in the kitchen. A Russian sex worker had been released who had shared a cell with, and I was offered her job. And then when I got there, I was asked if I would like my partner to work with me in the kitchen. And I was just like, yes. And we worked together every day. In a very short space of time, we were together every day inside that place. And to me, that is a testament of love and will and just hope, that faith that things can get better. And I do believe we are. We have that. That's my experience. But we have that inside of us. This going on, this keep going on. Clinging to hope maybe, or desperate for something. And I believe it's the ladder from getting something done to hope, to faith. And then we'll go down again, we'll go up again. But in my experience, that really resonates a lot. So we got extra privileges. We got money that was like plastic monopoly money to buy cigarettes and whatever. And we could order stuff outside. Like I got some face cream that was like something wild. Yeah, we never got visitors. No, none of our parents came to visit. We didn't want them to, but also I just want to say that the life that I came from, nobody knew that I was missing for months. They didn't realise. And I think that's a story maybe another time. But my parents wouldn't have known if I was dead or alive. And eventually they did find out. And we did have contact through letters maybe a year later. But nobody knew I was there apart from my partner's family. So we lived our best lives. I peeled potatoes and prepared potatoes for 1,500 people every day. That was my job. I took great pride in it. I was exhausted. It was this huge industrial kitchen, met more people, worked with more men. And, you know, just for context, there are people in there who have murdered, abused, done awful things that, you know, pedophiles, done awful things. And when I was in there, because I'll just speak from my own sense, is you couldn't think about it. You could not absorb you couldn't absorb that person. You could only see them at face value. I think it's an instinctual survival thing, but there was something about not having fear, probably because we're always being watched. There had been a couple of incidents in the kitchen with knives that I wish I hadn't seen, actually. And there were some really good people in there who were kind to me and helped me. That feels emotional too. Who were, by law, very ruthless criminals. And I like to remember this actually about who I am today. And the coverage of all our differences. Because when it comes down to the shit goes down, and all that time that you don't have time to fantasize about why somebody's more different than you. You just meet people at face value and you look in their eyes and you sense them and you know something, either if it's off or not off, and you just take it from there, step by step. And I like to remember that every day of my life now, 49, that this is the best way to see people as they are, from face value. And there's something about the eyes, what you can tell from. So 3 months has gone. I've got a great job, getting really settled in there. Always want to go home, of course. I'll be extradited. And by the way, the Spanish people couldn't believe that I'd want to go to UK and serve my sentence. They thought that they've got this big thing that UK prisons are just horrendous. I've never experienced that before. And I'm like, that's home. I can speak English. I can meet people. I can get visitors, like I can get somebody might give me some money, and come visit me and give me some money. I've got So that never happened. 3 months went to trial. And I thought, all right, I think this is it. It's time to go home. The journey there was awful in those police wagons. Every time I see one now, when I'm driving about or whatever, I shudder because I remember sitting in that little box with no window and just getting handcuffed, getting jangled around. Anyway, the great kicker in Spanish prison and the judicial system was they can decide later on whether you're guilty or not. So it takes up to 3 days for them to come to a decision. So even after the trial, which is a blur to me, absolute blur, just shock again, we had to come back and we had to wait for the decision of whether we were going to be set free or whether we were going to stay and be found guilty. And on the third day, we got the call for lawyers, and everything went numb. I'm feeling it now. Everything went numb. And I looked through that pane of glass to the lawyer, who was called Manuel Maza, by the way, and he was talking. And as soon as I heard guilty, 3 years, 3 months, I couldn't hear a word he was saying. I couldn't understand. There was like ringing in my ears, that like everything's just my whole body's just gonna give up now. And we realized then that was that. And I didn't know how I was gonna go on. It just felt so overwhelming, that I just went into another deep seated shock. And the next day, I remember that I felt the heaviest I've ever felt in my whole life to date. As though I've got like this weighted jacket on or something, and I couldn't put one foot in front of the other. And I remember this man, he was called Ramon. He was very, very quiet, kept himself to himself, didn't talk to anyone, was a bit nervous and timid. He walked past me and put his hand on my shoulder, and I felt it. I felt that touch. And I felt that in that one touch, my spirits lift slightly, like taking off another kilo or something. And his smile, he was in there for stabbing his dad to death. He was going to be there for a long time. And that's another thing. You just think, why? Why did it come to that? What happened, to him? And I always like to, I do think like that a lot. Whether you're looking at some coverage or meeting somebody who's like sharing their experience. So shortly after that, even though I had the best job you could get, apart from a little interception, is there are swimming pools in some of the prisons in Spain because it's so friggin' hot. There's not a big wide window for air, and there's no aircon or anything like that. There's cockroaches, damp, and dry rot, and you make the best of it. I had an opportunity, unpaid, to be a lifeguard, and I went for the position for the female swimming pool. And out of all the applicants, there was me and another girl called Sharifa. She was a good friend of mine. She pissed everybody off, but I liked her. She was Algerian, absolute Raji, like very grumpy, and she was from France. She spoke French, and we got on really, really well. I just thought she was so entertaining, and she was so misunderstood. Anyway, and I'd often think of her sometimes, like I wonder what she's doing now. She was in for the same thing as me. Anyway, me and her were the lifeguards there. So I got to be in water, and one of the nice guards bought me a bikini so I could have a bikini on because I didn't have much in there. And amongst other things, mascara, she brought his lipstick. There were some really nice guards. And I think now that looking back, they took pity on me. But I didn't know that at the time. I just thought, oh, that's a nice thing, like, thank you. And yeah, so I had a little summer there where I was being a lifeguard and sacrificed money so I could be in the water. But I love water. I was a swimmer when I was younger, and there are other stories about it's manifestation, I say now, in the quantum physical realm. But in that part of my life, it was living the best you could live, being as kind as you could and present. And I call it to this day healing with strangers. Before I was in prison, I was very lonely. I was in a lot of pain and suffering, and I was carrying a shroud of shame, like a shroud of shame all the time from my childhood, being told I had no self-worth, and I learned and developed, and that grew in prison, even being taken away from the person I loved. I developed that I was doing these things, and I was a good person, and my life was getting better and better. Another example of that is how when you feel that you are aligned to those things and you are aligned in yourself and you can still feel that kind of spirit, that joy, and you're doing something, good for yourself and others, these things, it's like nature starts to speak. There was very little nature in that place, but there was a pool of water, and I got to be there like a little ducks, just being able to sit on the lake. And I felt it. I felt so lucky to be able to do that and feel that nature, feel the water on my skin. There's also another experience of nature coming into this concrete jungle, this absolute heavy metal ashram, like of sisterhood and brotherhood and community. Actually was through this summer in my yard in Modulo 22, there were swallows that came into the grounds. The walls are like, I can't remember how high exactly, but so high with barbed wire wrapped around you can't see anything. And birds came and made their nests. This is emotional. Actually, it's probably one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed in a place where you wouldn't imagine it could be. And the beautiful, So when I did have time to spend in this yard, I would sit in a certain bench, made some friends, would all sit together, drinking alcohol-free cerveza and toasted corn and smoking fags and drinking espressos that were like 15 pence from the shop. And it was really nice to see these swallows building a nest. And I would just admire it, watch it. And then one day, we come down. I came down to that place, and there was 3 birds who newly hatched, absolutely, bare naked, no feathers, just beaks and closed eyes, being eaten by ants. And they'd just been, I don't know how they fell out. They were on the ground, and the nests were, you had to stand on a table to reach the nest. And I remember being like, oh my God, this cannot happen. And I wasn't on my own, I know that, but I just remember I was like, we've got to save these chicks. Like, these chicks have to be saved. And most of everyone else was like, oh, well, that's just the way it is. And I guess it is, right? I was like, absolutely not. So whether people were being like talking against it, I got a table, like one of these plastic tables, and picked them up and put them back in the nest. Not knowing what would happen, whether the parents would reject them or anything like that. And I don't know how many weeks later it was. But I watched them fly. And it just felt like, yeah, just one of the most beautiful things that I've ever seen. And then as the seasons changed, they were gone. But yeah, that was a memory that I'll hold dear forever. And like how nature still communicates always, even in a concrete jungle where there isn't there isn't grass or anything like that, or earth. It's just concrete and metal. But it still finds a way. Definitely the cockroaches, and they were terrifying. I hate them. I mean, I've got nothing against them. I'm just so scared of them. There was so many of them, and they would have babies. Oh God, it was awful. And mice. That was another sad thing. They used to make me. Actually, part of my job was having to make these glue traps for them, and I had to do it, and I really hated it. And another sad thing about nature was this wing I got a job in, which was the Dangerous Woman's Wing, Modular 1, which is the wing for women who are violent or in solitude all the time. They can't be with other women. There was one day I was cleaning this. It was a Saturday morning. I would clean the office with all the glass and the panes of glass so they could observe everyone and the cameras and all that. And there was this little bit, and a bird had got through this tiny, tiny window in a passage. Tiny window. Makes us feel sad. It was still alive. And half of its body was already stuck to the glue, and it was just, I had to end its life. I thought the only thing I can do is do that. It couldn't have been saved. So I just want to put that in for balance, because that is life, right? And I had cover it up and stand on it. That actually, I had to say sorry to it. I had to cry. I had to ask God for help, and that I was doing the right thing. And yeah, I had to do that as well. And yeah, that stayed with me, and that still has stayed with me because I remember it. Yeah, I met some very dangerous women who were nothing but kind to me. I did witness some things, but they were always kind to me. And yeah, I just saw their eyes, and I think when you're in a pain and you have this thing in common of sharing pain, and you both, it's like a given. You don't need to discuss it. Everybody's got that. Everyone's in the same position, and the eyes are very important. You don't need words. It tells everything you need to know about that person in that moment. That's another great thing I learned, I guess, in a young age. Yeah, so that's some of my experiences. And then everything seemed to be going well, shall we say. And then I got slapped with, you need to pack your things and you need to go. You're going to Madrid to serve the rest of your sentence. Me and my partner had built a life together. We saw each other every day. We had extra closed visits that were sad but true. Sometimes good, sometimes just sad. Like sometimes good. Being in a room together, locked away for a certain amount of time. And we had developed a life within bars, behind the bars. So my whole world just fell apart again. I didn't know this was going to happen. And I was sent to Madrid the next morning. I had to say goodbye to my partner. Luckily, we developed great relationships with the people, like the guards and stuff, and they told him straight away. He came. I can't remember that goodbye. It was just very, very tearful. And he said, I'm going to come and follow you. I'm going to come to Madrid. Don't worry. Give us some plastic money and some packets of cigarettes from some of the other friends in the kitchen. And off I went the next day. I was absolutely gutted. And sent to Soto del Real, Madrid 5 for 3 weeks as an interim. With no communication. I got robbed straight away there, so I had no money. Was waiting. Yeah, I just lost everything again. And I remember sitting on this awful iron, like metal chair, like the kind of chair you get in bus stations, dead uncomfortable, cold, in this room with no job, nothing to do. And it was when Coldplay came out. There was a TV right across the hall, and Coldplay had just released Trouble, that song. And I remember sitting, and I could hear it. I could hardly see the telly, but I could hear the song, like, they spun a web for me. It sounds like such a friggin' sad song. And I was literally, that's how I felt. I remember that, like, vividly, that song. And every time I hear it, I'm like, oh, like that was another limbo situation of having out again. And then 3 weeks later, I got a call, you're moving again. And this was the final place. This was the place I was going to spend the rest of my time. And I can't exactly remember how much it was, maybe a year or maybe just over a year. I remember I did a Christmas there and a New Year there. And everyone was like, oh, you're going to Alcalá de Henares. It's Madrid too. It's beautiful. There's trees there. And you can leave your doors open. They don't just lock you up in the middle of the day. And it's like a bit more relaxed. So I got taken there with a bit of hope of like, oh, there'll be letters there. There might be money transferred there from my partner. It's been a long time, like 3 weeks. There might be some news, of what's actually happening in the outside world and in the inside world. And when I did get there, I was so happy as out to see the trees and some grass and some pebbles and and birds and less concrete, definitely less concrete. And it was a much nicer place. There was no work there to do, paid work. So I had I had a best friend. He lived in Ireland and would send me money now and again. I'd always do reverse charge calls to him. I don't know how much it ever cost to speak to him. But those were life-saving conversations. And yeah, I actually met a girl. I wish I knew where she was now. And she was English and she was a similar age to me and she was in for a similar thing and she was called Heather. I think she was from like Cotswolds or Cornwall. She used to say, "Hello, birdie." She used to talk like that and we got to share a cell together. I got to speak English every day and we played cards together, smoked cigarettes together, did everything together. And that felt amazing. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Of course, there's still hard times and rough days. There's no way out now. You're not going to get out. Like, there's no appeal anymore. You're now going to just have to chow down and do your time. But there's also settling into it of like, okay, this is it. Let's just get on with it. Yeah, it was all of these 4 prison experiences were very, very different. I learned a lot. I learned about letting go. I learned about letting God. I learned about being a good person and like just taking each day as it comes. I learned a lot about people and humans and human behavior in all spectrum, of behaviors. I learned how to get what I needed and what I wanted. I learned about leverage. I learned about, sisterhood and helping each other. I learned about compassion. I learned photography. I've got a photograph that was in my Good News Bible. Like I'm going to sell it. I've got a picture that I did a course with. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. And that was me near the end of my sentence. A Brazilian woman called Selena took it and I took hers and she took mine and we got to take these and develop them. And yeah, I've got one left and I've found it and I've kept it forever. I've also got some letters I may read from my partner at the time that I've still got. Something about this waiting is the worst, isn't it? I hope you're okay today. My mum was asking why you haven't written, but I suppose you haven't got the letter where I asked you to write to her yet. I'm saying it now. My mum's asked you to write to her to let her know that you are okay. And don't worry, things are here. They're just the same as always, shit. And I'm missing you like crazy, Susan. Things are getting by. When I phone home on Friday, well, Susan, I'm sorry to be rushing off, but I'm going to hand in my estancia. It's a request form, and go to the gym and try to shake off these blues because I know it's no good. I'll be okay when I'm with you. I love you so much, Susan. I've never felt so alone without you. All my love for always. I can't remember exactly how late it was, by the time I'd settled into there, lo and behold, my partner had come and arrived and was in the prison next to mine. So it wasn't like the Valenciana one, or the Valencian one. At Picassent, it was an actual separate building on the other side of a wall. On these prisons, they had guards that patrolled around the walls as well with guns, which was very exciting every hour to see that. And so he arrived to be with me in a separate building. It's so romantic, right? So friggin' romantic, honestly. Just to be near so we could be together in this thing. It was amazing. Even knowing he was there, I didn't get to see him. I got phone calls, scheduled phone calls. We could phone each other, or he rang me, or somebody connected us, and we could have a phone call to each other. I think it was like once a month or something. He started working in the infirmary. We got regular correspondence to each other, which kept us going. And I saw him once and visited his prison, and I couldn't believe my eyes because I hadn't seen him for so long. He'd got like ripped and he just looked so handsome, and his hair was all surfy, and I was like, freaking hell, like, wow, like we were kind of just that excited but like really in shock as well. It's like, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing, but it's still a shock to your nervous system, like all this surprise element, and so that is a blur as well. And then we got the opportunity to do home visit through an evangelist visitors. I got visitors to come on the outside on a Sunday. They would come and visit me through the glass. And I got these evangelist people to come and visit me on Sundays. And it was very exciting because I have visitors. And I was following God. I always thought there was something up, but I liked, the goodness in being a nice person and believing in something that can help me be better and create a better life, Anyway, they vouched for me and him, and I got through it was something Horizon. It was for foreigners who could get, at the end of their sentence, could have home visits. Not home visit, home leave, right? So I had to stay in this hostel in Madrid on the outside. Never been to Madrid in my life, only prison. And just have a couple of days and an overnight and then come back. And did that. We did one together. We got to stay, I think it was 2 nights together, and we actually bumped a hotel because we had no money, but we really wanted to stay in a hotel. Lord forgive me for my sins. We really wanted to be together because he was in a hostel, I was in a hostel, and it was the only way you were allowed to go out to stay for a couple of days and not do a runner, right? We went in. Now, we didn't know that that was possible. I call it manifestation. And we had a lovely time in there, right? And then we just walked out and nobody was there. Like, that's what we did. And we didn't know, like, it was really a bad thing, but it was survival, right? We did that. My heart was breaking when we had to go back. We were getting this train back from Madrid to the prison, and he was going to go that way and I was going to go that way. And my heart was broken that we would have to leave each other again. I've always got this trauma. Even sometimes it comes when somebody just walks out of the room. Like, I'm like, oh God. There's just so many times these leavings and separations have happened. But I'm working on it. Anyway, I think that was one of the last times, and before we came home, and one of the most beautiful things that did happen, even though I'm estranged from both my parents, my mother for a long, long time, and my dad shortly after, he came and he visited me for one day, and that is the best time and alone time I've ever had with my dad. In the centre of Madrid, we went and saw the palace. Like, he took me for pizza. I had a beer. I remember having one beer and I went to the toilet and I was like, oh my God, I think I'm drunk. We had good one-to-one chat. We'd never had these opportunities in the past. And I met him at the airport and managed to find a way to get there and use public transport to be able to meet him at the airport and greet him while I was on home leave. I think I had 3 home leaves all in all. So yeah, there was one spent with the evangelist who was so kind to me, like, and so lovely, and took me out into the countryside and showed me around and give me food. They put my dad up that night because I had to go to the hostel. I wasn't allowed to sleep anywhere else. I had a curfew, just to make sure I hadn't legged it. And yeah, I just remember spending the day with my dad there, and I've never had a day with him like that. I hadn't had for years, just me and him, and I hadn't have had since. And so that was a miracle in itself to be able to have that, you know. Yeah, it was a place of witnessing miracles on the daily, like every day. And it always depended on how you felt anyway. You know, you had your days when you just couldn't take it anymore and you couldn't face it, but they never lasted. There was always something going on. There was always somebody else around. I believe as humans, every one of us, we are suffering from loneliness, from shame, from suffering in general, like, and trying to anesthetize, you know what I mean? Anesthetize it, right? Or subdue it somehow. And that community and the way the discipline was given was you could not hide in pain and suffering and loneliness. You could not, even if it pissed you off and you didn't want to talk to anyone. There was always somebody around. There was always activity going on. There was always somebody to go to. Everybody found a one, you know, everybody did. And yeah, that I noticed, in a world where I'd come from to go into this experience, like I can talk about it freely now and learned it, you know, 28 years on. It's like my version of 28 years later or something. Like actually integrated this rare and wonderful, exciting experience to look at all these things and integrate that community that I didn't have until I got in there. And that lack of self-worth and that self-worth I developed in there, and that faith that I have today in universal consciousness, in my own consciousness, in myself, with knowledge in the breath work I teach and the Kundalini Yoga I teach and the circles I hold and the one-to-one healing spaces, that it's all accessible internally. You just need to have a right environment of like safety, connection, softness and presence. That's all we all need, every single one of us. And when we don't have that or we don't perceive that, then, you know, the loneliness sets in, even in a crowd of people, you know, in your own family. And yeah, we all have that somehow. We've all had it. So loneliness and suffering and shame. Yeah, that was my first experience. That was my first ashram to life itself, to feeling life soaked into my cells, right? And flowing through me, like actually feeling this, what I thought then was the Holy Spirit, possibly still is, some call it that, but this actual life, when your whole system is ignited, you know, with your nervous system, your brain, your limbic system, your neocortex, your prefrontal cortex, all these things, when they're aligned and you have the right environment, they can light you up and free yourself from within. I've learned this now in my experience. I came home, I kind of pushed it all away, got a regular job, got married, had 2 beautiful children. So the love story went on, and yeah, learned so much about life, learned I was a good person. And then, in the last 15 years, I started seeing things magically again in a different way and took the studies again, not Bible studies, but Kundalini Yoga teacher training, breathwork facilitation, High Priestess training, witch school, Shakti Dance of yoga, building communities out the Wellbeing Centre. I always wanted to create a community place that people could go to. And my first experience of that was prison. So I call it like first ashram because I haven't been to India yet. And I've been to some amazing places in the world and seen some amazing things I'm so thankful for. And I've seen them in Technicolor probably because of these experiences. I haven't been to India yet and I haven't done an ashram like that. But I have been part of beautiful retreats and created them in the UK, outside of the UK, with this in mind of all of us sitting around the table together eating. And it doesn't matter about what your differences are, where you've come from, what you've done, where you've been. Who are you now? Who are you here now? And let's come and sit and eat at the table and just let that nature take its course. And the ashram thing about prison was, when I did my Kundalini Yoga teacher training, we were all sitting, singing mantras, doing lots and lots of Kundalini Yoga, learning theory, practicing teaching and all the rest of it, right? Living in a community with actually, there was a place in Barnard Castle and it was actually very beautiful, colourful prison-like. It was metal bunk beds. And I remember thinking, is it going to come out that I've been in prison? I don't know. And I did eventually come out with it. And just, I wanted it to just come out. I just wanted it to come out. It has felt, until maybe 6 years ago, like cut glass in my belly. And I went on TV and won this show with my Wellbeing Centre and got a lot of media coverage. I ended up being interviewed by Ruby Wax and had pink hair and 10 years ago or whatever it is now, and got awarded a local Pride Award from the Pride of Britain and all this, right? And then I started doing therapy after it when I watched myself on the telly, and I thought, oh my God, I feel like a fraud because I've still got all this stuff inside of me, and I was too scared to talk about it. I felt shame about my children who are now older, and they know now. I told them my story, my part, and it was so easy. It was so easy to tell them, and I don't know why I was thinking it was so bad, and I realized they love me. I'm the mum, and my older son, who's a bit way, he thought it was pretty cool actually, and and my other son who's he's different, and he took it his way, and the response from them was just a beautiful thing. And then I decided then I could talk about it publicly. I came out with it on a retreat that I was part of. After a breathwork session, it just came, you need to tell your truth. And so I said that in front of everyone because I always had this wall, right? There's a lot of walls, right? I'd been conditioned with walls, but I had an invisible wall that everyone else was better than me. And I had this dirty little secret, I am just nipping back. actually, let's go back in time. I'm still in prison. I'm going to go back to prison. I used to actually, and I believe this is a real mind set thing now that lots of people talk about, but when I was in there, I used to run, and the yard was tiny. This was at the end of my sentence in this lovely prison, the one with trees, and I would run around this tiny little yard, and in the Madrid midday sun, if that was the only time I could do it, and just pour bottles of water just over us so I could be okay. And I remember reading something out of this Good News Bible that it was something about the walls of Jericho. And I remember going, well, if I keep running, them walls are going to come down. The walls that are in this yard are going to come down. And yes, of course they didn't. And part of it is that I was accessing like this meta part or something, like this gamma part of my brain. If I was wound up like a little windy up clockwork thing, I was like in it. I was in this thing. I was like, yeah, these walls are going to come down. And now I realize like it was just the walls in my head, that made us feel free. And yeah, I used to run like Forrest Gump. You know what I mean? Just go round and round. People are like, you don't do that. And I'm like, no, I need to do this. And yeah, just going back to there, I'm going to come back out of prison now and come back to more present day when, so talking about the truth of my story, because of getting some public national coverage, being on like national TV, and then that came up. I did a lot of therapy for a while, about a year. I started doing timeline therapy, and I have got I had a lot of pages sellotaped to each other about the things that helped me through that, but also to come from a place of peace with it all, and there's a power in that. There's power in it, and there's presence in it. And even I was already doing like Reiki therapy, teaching Reiki, meditation classes, I had a meditation club. Even realizing why I wanted to do all these things, to integrate the full part of me, who I am, to a place of balance, to a place of peace and presence for myself, so I can have a canny life, and I have lived, to the spectrum of what that was. I've seen so many countries. With my partner, I met a partner, and she's a public health officer on a cruise ship, and I didn't know that when I met her. She wasn't actually working at the time; she was off for a while, and in the last few years, I've got to live on the other scale, so magically, seeing places like Greenland, like Iceland, America. I don't know how I got in there, because I was told I would never be able to go to America, and I kind of believed that. And going through JFK Airport and being stamped in was one of the greatest moments of my life last year. Going to New York on my own as well. I was on my own, and I was just like, start spreading the news. I was elated. I was like, I am accepted in America. I've been to Canada. I've been all over the Caribbean, South America, Mexico, LA, and oh my God, it's still going. It's still going. And these things, I never knew these things were possible, but I knew there is light. There is a light, and sometimes we just don't know what that looks like. But it's just everything's possible in there, and I've seen that in some of the worst places imaginable, the stink of them, and the lack of creativity in there, and the no view. And this is all coming in here, from here. And I know it 100%, because I've seen it, I've witnessed it, I've lived it, embodied it. And then I learned what the hell was all this going on. I remember my Mary Magdalene Priestess teacher, Sheila Bonds. I remember talking to her about like what mystery school is. And I remember she said to me, she went, your life is your mystery school. And I was like, oh, yeah. And there's a puzzle and we're all working things out. And sometimes we just need to like sack the puzzle off for a little while, and then get back to it. But when she said that, it really, I was like, yeah, that is right. And so integrating these other practices in order to help myself and other people, right? So they can realize that like you can sort yourself out, right? You've got some brain chemistry, some blood chemistry to sort out. You might need to change your environment. You might need to change your discipline and your habits, right? But I'm telling you now, you can sort yourself out and I can help you, right? Because I know how to do this. And it is hard to ask for help, right? I still find it difficult sometimes getting better, but community is a great thing for that. Finding a community that you feel safe in, connected, present in, that resonates with you. That's massive, right? And I've gone through from like this like concrete metal, like if it was music it would be like like that kind of ashram, to like Waheguru, Waheguru. I've done I'm sorted, enlightened. I'm done. No. But like there's an element of learning and it takes the time it takes, right? There's always things problems to solve. There's disciplines. They don't have to be maca. They can be like little things. And yeah, there's definitely a way out. There's definitely a way. Freedom is like, what's it like? The only way out is in, the only way out is in, because what I've come to believe through what I'm learning about quantum physics and spiritual stuff that's gone on for like eons, right? That when that comes together, there's a program, there's a way to be able to do it, to restructure, to turn you back online, really, so you can have this life the way you want to paint it. And you don't even have to like push yourself with like vision boards and all that. You just know that light's there. It's in you and it's all around you. You might not know what it looks like. In fact, a lot of spiritual people are, like Tibetan Buddhist monks, they go in like retreats in dark rooms for like 10 years and that. That's a similar way, I guess, of this, pulling out this experience, pulling that out the bag of gems, that you hold in you. And I do believe you were born with. Everybody, not one person is exempt from that. Yeah, I do think that we all have a way out, and we all deserve freedom. We're all looking for it at the end of the day. We're all searching for it. What the friggin' hell is it? It comes in lots of different ways, but I'm really thankful that the roots of my I'm Susan Universe, part of the universe thing that I am today around was rooted and started sprouting from being in prison. That's when I became alive, fully alive, and we're all here to live and to feel what that feels like in all ways. It's exciting. It's really exciting. And when you do have shit that goes on, being able to process that, the body can do it as well. So wise, can get through everything. So wise. Then when you do see things that are joyful, you can hold them and you can see them in like full HD colour. You can feel them in your heart in full HD, You're not in Kansas anymore, Like, that is the whole purpose of, I think, is what life is.